Super Bowl is done, and it is officially the NFL offseason, which means we got to look over these coaching changes. That and more in the AFC North on a coaching carousel show. It's the Audible. Let's do it.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to Footballguys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
Our coaching carousel shows begin in the AFC North. AFC had so many changes, we got to split it into two parts. That's for Tuesday and that's for Thursday. Check them out live. Also, we'll be releasing them by team in the Audible feed as well. So make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We appreciate that. But it's the Baltimore Ravens, Bloom. That's where we're going to start because the Baltimore Ravens needed to move on from John Harbaugh. And it's a tough move after nearly 2 decades as their head coach, and it's one where your message becomes stale at a certain point. And the message had become stale with John Harbaugh. The relationship with Lamar Jackson seemingly fractured. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was. I know that Harbaugh denied it, but we also have reports of like, no, it was, Jackson allegedly falling asleep in meetings, Jackson changing the practice time because he stays up all night playing video games. We don't know if any of this is true. We know those are the rumblings, and we know the rumblings, and we had talked about this in some of our playoff preview shows, Bloom, about how you needed to get a coach that was, Lamar Jackson was a fan of. Enter Jesse Minter. And Minter was a fan, and certainly Jackson is a fan of Minter. So it's all about fit in the National Football League. I'll merely open up the Baltimore conversation with Bloom. How does Jesse Minter fit with Lamar Jackson?
Well, that question is yet to be seen, I think. But we know he fits with the Ravens organization. And first, I want to say, hey, everybody, it's great to be in a new year. It's a new year. Everybody starts anew. Thanks for spending the non-playing season with us. And we have to first start with those changes. And this was the most stunning change, I think, until the next change. This was the thing. We had a Monday. These guys, they're headed to the morgue. Not to be so grim, but this was. He got the call on the way to work. Like they had a meeting to talk about some stuff, and then he was on his way to the Ravens. Whew. And you could tell that his statement was done real hastily, like on a phone. I mean, could this have been done in a nicer way? Because what this really is a succession. I mean, Jesse Minter is the love child of John and Jim Harbaugh, right? He spent 4 years with each of them. And then a dude, Trent Miles, who he was with at Georgia State and Indiana State. And by the way, his replacement with the Chargers is Chris O'Leary, who was also a Trent Miles guy. So maybe Trent Miles is like the secret in the Harbaugh tree. But Biscotti and just Costa, and I read Biscotti's book and he said, I forget the story, Cecil, but it was something along the lines of like, I almost had us not draft Ed Reed or something like that. And then I learned to like stay away, like hands off, let Ozzie do his thing.
Yeah. And
it sure seemed like in the talks that Biscotti was part of this decision. Maybe it was his decision. DeCosta signed on. And was it over Todd Moenken? Was it over the relationship? It's like urban myths, right? It doesn't really matter what's true. What showed you something was wrong. Something was wrong. But I think, Cecil, that Biscotti and DeCosta think that it wasn't just, we're going to talk about Buffalo, but it wasn't just John Harbaugh. In this case, I think they think it was both Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh with problems, but they can't get rid of them both.
They can get rid of one, though, and that's what they did with John Harbaugh there. And with Jesse Minter coming in, I don't think, you mess with the offense too much. No. It is interesting to note that Mike Macdonald won more playoff games this year with Sam Darnold than John Harbaugh did in 8 years with Lamar Jackson. You want to change that if you're Baltimore. So pretty much not wholesale changes offensively. You still have Derrick Henry, still going to lighten them up there, and still going to utilize Lamar Jackson's legs as part of this offense, a big part of this offense.
Absolutely. However, this is the tough love plan. This is the tough love plan. I think that we saw a couple of things happen. Number one, T. Martin fired. Now, it was presented as he was really close to not fired, but like not retained. I'm sorry. T. Martin not retained. and then they bring in Declan Doyle, Bears. So you get the Ben Johnson coaching tree. That's nice.
He
But
was under Sean Payton too.
Right. And then we're going to talk about Sean Payton a lot during these coaching changes. 3 degrees of Sean Payton, whatever. Declan Doyle was part of the tough love plan for Caleb Williams, right? I mean, that was the whole thing. It's like, hey, Caleb, you got talent, but first you got to do things right and do it right every time. And I think that you change the quarterback coach to Israel Woolfolk, who was Arizona's quarterback coach. And when we get to Arizona, every time I look at Arizona, I'm like, is it really that bad? Like, everyone wants Arizona's coaches. What went on in Arizona? Well, what we know is that Woolfolk and Doyle are going to have that tough love approach to Lamar Jackson this offseason. And DaCosta has a big decision because Jackson's cap numbers, I don't know what it is, like 45 million or something, a pretty big cap number. He has 2 years left on his contract. This is the point where you do an extension, you know, and he becomes the new highest paid player in NFL history, right? But we heard Lamar Jackson was not, we have to reverse engineer C's, because we heard the Ravens want a coach that's going to reach Lamar Jackson. The Ravens want a coach that's going to invigorate him. Well, we can assume that he wasn't invigorated and he wasn't being reached by Todd Moenken, who we're going to talk about in this show. Who, again, the word was that Harbaugh actually had a pretty good relationship with Lamar Jackson. He was the go-between, which is like, that's never good when you have a go-between between your quarterback and your head coach. So Anthony Weaver, by the way, the defensive coordinator, that's Ravens. Even though Weaver and Minter were never on the Ravens staff at the same time, continuity. I mean, that's the thing. This could have been done like a succession and with some dignity for John Harbaugh, because really you have a John Harbaugh disciple taking the place. You have a player who coached under John Harbaugh and played for John Harbaugh as the defensive coordinator, and so on and so forth. So, and we're going to talk about this with the Buffalo too. Like, for a massive change, it's not really that massive of a change, except tough love for Lamar.
Tough love for Lamar is going to determine how this thing works out. And defensively, we'd assume continuity.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's the thing, is that Weaver knows his way around this building as a player, as a coach, personnel wise. I think that this is a team that, some of these things, traded Odafe Oweh midseason. Of course, by the way, get your Football Guys rookie guide, footballguys.com/rookie guide, free and amazing and beautiful. And this, we start to think about that, but the defense was not the problem, at least, when they're playing Joe Burrow. So I do think that really, as we know, Cease, as goes Lamar Jackson, so goes the Ravens.
Yeah, so goes the Ravens, and so goes to where? I know the AFC, and you had New England, the representative in the Super Bowl, and now people are taking a call Drake May, fake May, and they're calling him the schedule because of the schedule that the Patriots played to get there always. But I would say this, Baltimore's going to be back. There's some of these coaching changes, and I'll save this for our Joe Brady conversation as well, Bloom, but there's some of these coaching changes that are going to be a smash hit. Full disclosure, don't really root for Baltimore a whole lot. Sorry to Ian's cat, who's one of our real ones in the chat room, but I'm like, Baltimore probably got this right with Jesse Minter. And if he can get through to Lamar, if Lamar has been distracted by video games and not taking it as seriously as he needed to, if that actually is the case, imagine if someone gets through to him.
Yeah.
We're talking about MVP level times 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying they'll go undefeated, but this hire from Baltimore could really be the sauce.
It could be the sauce, even if what is revealed over time is that Lamar Jackson has checked out to the extent that you can't be an elite quarterback. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson has truly checked out, is going to retire or something, but the game of inches means playing it on a razor's edge. And we've seen Lamar Jackson before he got a second contract, his focus sometimes, or I don't want to say willingness to play through injuries, but this is, again, one of those things, urban legend or not, perception still matters in the sense that you have to be able to answer that as an organization, answer that as a coach, answer that as a player. So again, just like when he got his new contract, and he did respond with that MVP level play, the focus is going to be on Lamar Jackson to respond, to find his own internal, here we go with the spiritual fuel station, his own internal motivation. That's what Minter and Doyle and Woolfolk and all these guys, like, they're trying to unlock that puzzle. But it doesn't mean it wasn't a good hire if they can't. It might mean that Lamar Jackson's peak has already come and gone without a Super Bowl, which is sad.
Have we seen the best of blank? It's a question we have to ask in football and in life. Have we seen the best of blank? I don't know with Lamar. What we've seen has been really damn good, except for the playoffs, which have been terrible. But like, okay, can you take that next step? Let us know in the comments section below. Did Baltimore get this thing right in their hire of Jesse Minter? It is the Audible. We're going through the AFC North coaching carousel. It's our part 1. We got part 2 coming up, not for the AFC North, but for the rest of the AFC, because there was a lot of changes in this conference. The changes to the Cleveland Browns. And we talked about it with Todd Moenken. I was like, okay, he is now the Browns head coach. And Kevin Stefanski, we're going to talk about him in the NFC show. But right now, the smartest offensive mind in the AFC North could be in Cleveland.
So this one, as we start with Todd Moenken, we start there. You first think, did anybody, I mean, they were going to give it to Jim Schwartz. I mean, there's a lot of talk, which I think, even though it's not exciting, at least you're taking what works with the team and putting it at the center. And then, you know, the offense is in a sidecar like Robin. But that model has worked. I mean, you can play the defense, having a head coach like Jim Schwartz, and you have the defense against the offense within the team. Like, that dynamic can bring out a lot. And, well, no, this was not an attractive job. Who else was going to take it? Well, Todd Moenken was going to take it. And Todd Moenken famously, you know, dunked on the Cleveland organization his last time there. Awkward? Not awkward? I don't know. Because, again, was it Todd Moenken? And this is a new one, Cease, where John Harbaugh was reportedly fired for saying, I won't fire Todd Moenken. And then that guy gets a promotion to a head coach. Oh, but it's Cleveland. Now it makes sense, right? But he did have a good offense. And maybe that was John. And maybe we'll find out John Harbaugh was right. Maybe we'll find out that John Harbaugh was right to say, no, Lamar, he's a good coach. You guys have to find a way to work it out. And, you know, if you can't, then that's on you, not on us. And Moenken improves this offense. Although he's inheriting something from Kevin Stefanski, where, like you said, we don't want to jump ahead to Atlanta, but Atlanta's saying, Cleveland, you were wrong. Cleveland's kind of saying, Baltimore, you were wrong. There's a lot of that, a lot of finger pointing in this coaching carousel. So that makes it fun. He brought Travis Switzer over with him for the Baltimore run game. So, you know, it's going to be, Deuce Staley is sticking around to be the head. Deuce. That's good, right? I mean, they're going to have a run game. We'll see about the defense. Jim Schwartz is under contract. They would have to trade him. You know, apparently he wanted that head coach job, not getting it made him say, and again, Todd Moenken, maybe not the most touchy-feely guy, okay? Because in his press conference, he says, I wasn't trying to chip Jim Schwartz. I was trying to chip Myles Garrett. Now, this is when we didn't know yet if Schwartz was going to stay on with Moenken. Right. Oh, you know, Schwartz's defenses were great. But, you know, he was saying, like, Myles Garrett, that's exciting. Jim Schwartz? You're saying just Jim Schwartz? No, he doesn't deserve the credit. So that's how it got started with Todd Moenken. And the next question is, what about the quarterback?
Right. And that's a big question because Shedeur Sanders is a Pro Bowler. Okay. What about Deshaun Watson?
Right.
Todd Moenken's biggest obstacle is his quarterback, who's highly paid on a fully guaranteed contract. Don't think they could get rid of him, Bloom. But Moenken's decision, and then what he does with Shedeur Sanders, their skill there with Shedeur Sanders. You got to work through some other stuff, but their skill there with Shedeur Sanders. So this quarterback thing, and we could say this about every coach, but it's like, how do they work with their quarterback? How do you work when you have Deshaun Watson, but you kind of don't want him anymore? And you have Shedeur Sanders, but who the hell knows how good he actually is? I guess it's Moenken's job to find out.
Right. And the latest is that Deshaun Watson is healthy, 100% healthy. And the Browns are intrigued. They're intrigued. I'm not, because it wasn't his body that failed him. Right. I mean, if I heard that he did a spiritual rehabilitation, an emotional, psychological rehabilitation, if he was contrite, you know, then maybe. But that doesn't mean he can't mess this up. He can't. It's the Browns, right? And that's the interesting thing here, because when Kevin Stefanski took over, it looked like he was the coach to get this thing going in the right direction, and Baker Mayfield was the quarterback to get this thing going in the right direction, right? And then it all fell apart. And then Deshaun Watson is foisted upon him, and he still gets the team back to the playoffs after Watson goes down with Joe Flacco. And they were winning games with Deshaun Watson, but not because of Deshaun Watson, all right? And they get to the playoffs with Joe Flacco. And again, you're like, geez, Stefanski. I mean, he's overcoming that. Matt Waldman's great piece about being a Cleveland fan. It's on mattwaldmanrsp.com. The Han, I think, is the name of the idea in Korean culture, like this dreadful feeling that, like, no matter what, something bad's going to happen at the end, and that's Cleveland. And it feels like it's the curse of Deshaun Watson. I mean, it feels like this is a move that is going to echo, I think, until he's off the roster. And then will there be a ghost of Deshaun Watson, right? There were teams, I feel like this is a good moment to say, Cecil, there were teams, the Saints, the Falcons, and the Panthers, the whole AFC South, basically. They were all in on Deshaun Watson. They were in on him. They should say a thank you prayer every day to the football gods. There, but for the grace of y'all, go us. We would have been the Browns. And no one wants to be the Browns.
No one wants to be the Browns, but they do have some offensive players that we could highlight here, including Quinshon Judkins and Jerry Jeudy. David Njoku's leaving,
Harold
shocker.
Fannin.
And then Harold, Mother Blanket Fannin. Man alive. So if you're Moenken, can you do what you did earlier? Again, back to the quarterback thing. I guess for this conversation, Bloom, I'll assume it's Shedeur.
Well,
I'll assume that. We'll see. But we've got talent with Cleveland, like defensively, right? Done. But offensively, there's some weapons there for Todd Moenken to utilize.
And again, with Travis Switzer coming over from Baltimore, and the two of them have worked together. I mean, that's the right thing to do if you have Myles Garrett and Cleveland's defense. You want to win low-scoring street fights, rock fights. You aren't trying to get. And now, Shedeur Sanders is saying the right things, and we'll see what else they do at quarterback. There's possibilities, but I think that I'm sorry, Cleveland fans. I mean, there's some teams, Cecil, we're going to talk about during this coaching cycle change that might have to go backwards to go forwards, something like that,
Okay.
And I think that with the quarterback situation, we'll see about Shedeur Sanders, but I still think you're looking at Shedeur Sanders as, at best, a career trajectory that keeps him on the fringe, like Taylor Heineke or Geno Smith, on the fringe of starters, because even though he's got a live mind and arm, you can see some of the flaws in college translating. Now, again, it's Todd Moenken's opportunity to show that he can thread the needle, and you do that, I think, by taking a lot off of his plate, putting a lot of structure around him when I'm only throwing the ball 15 or 20 times a game. But that's not Shedeur Sanders' game. But again, this is the theme, sees just like with Lamar Jackson, like tough love. You got to walk before you can run. Wax on, wax off. How many times is he going to wax on, wax off before he just turns back into Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah, let's avoid using that when we're talking about a team with Deshaun Watson. Anyway, sorry, Joe.
That's a Freudian slip. Woo!
Sorry, Joe, that one. How about this one, Bloom? Because I look at Cleveland, and let's go spiritual fuel station, right? Let's talk about shadow work. Mm-hmm. Shadow work is incredibly important for all of us. When you have to stare at your flaws, when you have to meditate on your trauma, like you have to do shadow work. It's very important for all of us, and we could have a whole other podcast about.
We will.
And maybe we will.
A series.
That spiritual fuel station.
This week's shadow work update.
Isn't that the shadow work that you're talking about with Cleveland?
Yeah.
They got to look at themselves. They're flawed.
Yeah, it's self-scouting, right? It's Matt Waldman, I'll mention him again. It always it loves to talk about like what he learned between last year's RSP. By the way, get in your RSP, footballguys.com rookie guide, free.
Oh, Sig froze there for a little bit. New Orleans internet back.
Yeah,
for just a little bit.
It's Mardi Gras. I can't believe we even got this far. Remember, hey, if someone shoots a confetti cannon into the power lines, it can cause a blackout. I'm not making that up. Remember, this is the only city that has Super Bowl with a blackout in the middle of it. Okay.
Yes.
If I said there was a Super Bowl with a blackout, you only need one guess to guess which city. The most organized city in the Caribbean, not the least organized city in the United States. So I would love to see. We could do like a crossover episode between Spiritual Fuel Station and the Audible, where we do what's the shadow work for all 32 franchises, head coaches, quarterbacks, or even individual players. But I think the point is that, and I'm living this right now, I'm doing it. I'm in it right now. And the point, folks, is I'm looking in the camera for this one. If you don't acknowledge the darkness in you, then you will project it onto everybody around you, and you'll be fighting invisible enemies. It's really you the whole time. And you'll know that you're starting to make progress when your wounds, this is all Carl Jung. Jung said the wound is where the consciousness gets in. When the wounds, you start to be proud of your wounds. You start to feel like that's also part of the great story of me. And I'm going to get verklempt, so I'm going to pass it back to you.
Yeah, and back to me we go with the Cleveland Browns coaching hire of Todd Moenken. What do you think? Drop a comment down below and let us know as we go through the AFC North and the coaching changes. Did Cleveland finally get it right? That's a large question. Another large question for us, and I save it for the last for very good reason, Sigmund, because once Mike McCarthy is hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers, I was like, uh-oh. And then I was like, wait, I can't wait to hear what Bloom says about this. Bloom, you've had, of course, a couple of weeks to ruminate on this. Yes, process the Mike McCarthy hire. It's last for a reason. Maybe it's the best, maybe it's not. Maybe Aaron Rodgers stays, maybe he doesn't. That's also part of this conversation. What would he do with Malik Willis? That's another part of this conversation. Quarterback's going to hang heavy over the, 60-year-old Mike McCarthy? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You got me thinking. It was just International Clash Day a couple days ago, Cecil. Should I stay or should I go? That was Mike Tomlin. Should I stay or should I go? Except he already decided like at least a year ago, right? Mm-hmm. Was it Rondé Barber that he confided in? I think. I
believe so, yes.
Jay Glazer, and sure enough, if we're telling the story of this, he didn't feel appreciated. When you can do it, folks. See, you want to talk about magical thinking? The Steelers chanting "Fire Tomlin," I think was a crossing the Rubicon moment for him. That it gave him the clarity in that question: should I stay or should I go?
Yeah.
And someone might say, what does this stand for? Does it stand for watch what you wish for? Or does it stand for maybe Mike Tomlin had some flaws, and just like John Harbaugh, just like we'll talk about Sean McDermott, it isn't that they didn't have pluses, but the team wasn't going to be able to get past where they were at. Except the Steelers didn't fire Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin decided to walk away. I think Mike Tomlin would not have been fired, even though the Steelers lost in embarrassing fashion again in the playoffs. And what that tells me is that, this was a team, call it quarterback. This is one of those things you heard, like the Mike Tomlin defenders cease. Boy, we're going to go down the Steelers neurosis rabbit holes. Because the Mike Tomlin defenders would say stuff that basically amounted to Mike Tomlin's the only guy that can fix the problems Mike Tomlin created.
Yeah. Okay. How does that work out with Mike McCarthy entering the chat? And again, what does that mean for a Steelers team that can't get over the hump? It doesn't matter if you're making the playoffs every year if you're not a real Super Bowl threat.
Now you're getting embarrassed.
Yeah. The Steelers haven't been a real Super Bowl threat in over 15 years.
It was Tebow. Ever since Tebow.
Is Mike McCarthy the guy to change that? Should have had more than one Super Bowl?
Right. And then here we go, right? The Steelers had in-person interviews, I think, with Anthony Weaver, right? And Brian Flores and Mike McCarthy, and that's it. To satisfy the Rooney Rule, and then McCarthy. So as a Steelers fan at that point, I'm distraught. I'm thinking, wow, Omar Khan, McCarthy, go all the way back to New Orleans here. So you're just going to hire one of your buddies because he's from Pittsburgh and he has a winning record, great. So this team, maybe it wasn't that Mike Tomlin was so conservative. It was like the organization's conservative and they would keep him forever because they love how conservative he is. Because this is unbelievably conservative, right? At first, how did they end up with Tomlin? They let the process play out. Nobody was going to hire Mike McCarthy. So, why not wait for the Rams to get booted from the playoffs at some point or win the Super Bowl? Chris Shula or somebody. But instead, as I saw more people talking about it, I can't remember who it was. Maybe Kevin Smith. I think it was Kevin Smith. Not that Kevin Smith, although he's really cool. Clerks. Spiritual Fools, Jason. Coming soon to your brain, your spirit at some point in the future. Coming soon. That one thing Mike McCarthy had was his hires became head coaches, a lot of them. Who's the last Mike Tomlin assistant to be a head coach? Has there even been one? Has there even been one that like is like a hot name? You know? So maybe that was it all along, right? Again, these Mike Tomlin can fix the problems. Mike problem solves. Mike Tomlin's coaching hires were Matt Canada. He couldn't fire himself, so the defense never really got, I don't want to say better or worse. It just was there was no new ideas.
Right.
So let's go down this because we could do a whole show, like a whole hour easily on just
on the Steelers, yes.
Just on the hires. But I'm gonna try to be brief. Okay. So offensive coordinator, they wanted Scott Tolzien. He's one of the few coaches that actually stayed in Green Bay. They get Angelicchio from Minnesota. This is your Grant Udinski, okay? Your new offensive coordinator. He was the tight end coach and passing game coordinator. Now he's been the tight end coach at a bunch of places under coaches that got fired, but also under good offensive coaches. He started out with Greg Schiano under Mike Sullivan in Tampa Bay. He was under Kyle Shanahan in Cleveland, and then Cleveland kept him when Shanahan got hired. He's under McCarthy. He was under Jake Gruden. He's under Matt Rule, but really under Joe Brady, and then he was under Kevin O'Connell. That's not bad. I mean, that's pretty. He was a passing game coordinator. So if you like that Vikings passing game, I like this. They didn't get the the Green Bay pick, but there is continuity. But it's continuity seats, but it's also players, coaches that have a lot of different backgrounds, right? Patrick Graham, all of the Raiders people love him, and said what he did with so little, Max Crosby and so little, he's got the most he's had to work with in a long time. And he's multiple, and he's updating some of the things. How many times does the Steelers make a defensive play because they diagnose the play? Because they anticipated it, because they don't. They just rely on how great, tough, strong, fast, determined they are. So maybe there are going to be some ideas there. The offensive staff is really where the fun is, though. You get James Campen, and that probably means Aaron Rodgers is back. I mean, I don't think they hired him because of Rodgers, but I do think that they looked out at the crop. Everyone thought they were going to take a young coach that you build around forever. That's what Steelers done 3 times in a row. I think they might have just looked out and said, that guy's not out there, or at least he's not there yet. Maybe a year or two, one of these guys will be that guy.
Right.
And McCarthy did seem genuinely like moved as a Pittsburgh guy to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wow, I'm getting tingles just thinking about it. So what else did he do? Jari Evans, Saints should be a Hall of Famer. Saints Bloomsburg, I'm gonna love him. Rising star of an offensive line coach. So that Campen's an elder statement. Evans, maybe that's your next offensive coordinator. Maybe your next offensive coordinator is Ramon Chinyung, coaching the Dallas offensive line. So again, with McCarthy connection, another rising star, and they're going to have him coach running backs. So this is that Green Bay system of cross training. Steelers weren't doing anything like this. They get Adam Henry, who was the Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry coach at LSU and at Cleveland, last at Buffalo. They did lose Danny Smith. That hurts. We'll talk about that when we get to Tennessee in the next episode. That some of these teams did retain some coaches. Danny Smith was just beloved, absolutely beloved. But you look at the coaches now feeling different. Cease. I'm like, well, there's a potential successor here, and there's ideas, and there's energy, and they're going to actually try to have coaches that give the team an advantage with game planning. Modern football. This team was stuck in the 20th century. Maybe the front office was stuck in the 20th century too. Mm-hmm. Mike McCarthy's maybe stuck in the 2010s, but he didn't have to lie to get this job. That was good. No awkward moments. And he is going to bring a certain sense of the prestige that comes with this job and the respect that comes with this job and understanding that it is religious in Pittsburgh. It is the religion.
And there's a value to that, Bloom. There's a value, again, spiritual fuel station. There's a value to knowing when you step into those shoes, what you're doing and what it represents.
Right.
What it means.
Who else has been there before you?
The league, everything. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The traditions that you are inheriting and that you are preserving. And I think that while this team is, Aaron Rodgers will be back. And in some ways it's kind of sad because if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back, I would love to see this team get in on Malik Willis. There's the Green Bay connection there, but there's a team with an even stronger Green Bay connection, if you can believe it, than what I just described. This isn't even the most Green Bay team of the offseason changes. Everyone wants to be Green Bay. Isn't that interesting, by the way? It is interesting to see And we also should ask, like, is the league actually good at knowing which coaches are responsible for the success? Not always. But when a whole bunch of coaches are taken from one team, then that means that everybody talks. Everybody talks. When so many coaches are leaving Denver, so many coaches are leaving Green Bay, so many coaches are everyone wants to talk to everyone on the Rams and so on. So I think the names matter because you can look at the reactions of the fans of the teams that lost these coaches, and they aren't happy about it. And they're saying, Steelers, you got a good one. Again, I don't remember that feeling since Mike Tomlin was hired.
Yeah.
So, maybe this will be okay.
Maybe it'll be okay. But what do y'all think? Drop a comment in the comment section down below. Did the Steelers get it right? Bloom, do you feel better?
I do. Well, we got to talk out our feelings. And I think, again, we may look back and say, everybody who wanted Mike Tomlin fired, you got what you wanted. You're happy. But at the same time, I do think that the Steelers as a team had been, not in a good way like New Orleans, stuck in the past. And they just did not have the wherewithal. And that's why they were blown out so consistently in the playoffs, is once the screws got tighter, they just could not hang at all with a playoff team, period, just with playoff teams. And at some point you have to say, like, even though it wasn't the front office that did it, it was the fans that stepped in and said, we're going to take the wheel. We aren't settling for this anymore. So maybe the real story is whether the Steelers get better or worse, the fans do have more of a say in the outcome of their franchise than they realize.
It is the Audible, 21 years now, footballguys.com. Make sure to go there, check it out. We got our free rookie draft guide out there for you at footballguys.com. So go there, check it out. And again, we appreciate the support. That's the way that you tip the show. That's the way that you support the show. If you love the Audible for 21 years or 1 year, 21 days, maybe you're a brand new listener, viewer, subscriber, then check out footballguys.com. We certainly appreciate you very much. He is Sigmund Bloom. I am Cecil Lammey. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Stay tuned, and would you always please stay frosty, baby.